You have no idea what is possibly potentially coming. This is all about them controlling people and lying to people through the media. The occult is knowledge about how nature works and how the human psyche actually works. And you know what? Our masters know it perfectly, and we don't know it at all. All that matters is whether you're awake to it and you understand that this is a dark occult. That's what all politics is. That's what the mainstream media is. But unfortunately, people are so brainwashed, so indoctrinated, that sometimes we have to take it there in a stepwise progression. Our masters don't want us to have access to the same tools of true learning that they have access to. The best way of dealing with this is don't be apologetic to people, don't let them control the narrative, and don't let them spread false information for others to believe. Fear is not just the mind killer, it is the soul killer. I'm here to speak 100% hardcore truth, no matter who it offends, and I'm going to do that. I think if you're being honest with yourself, you understand the propaganda of the media is working way better. And, you know, we need to put our own propaganda out there. That's what speaking the truth is. It's a form of propaganda. It is saying, I am attempting to influence your mind toward the right way of thinking. And there is a right way of thinking and a wrong way of thinking about all of this stuff. Absolutely. And the right way is stick to the principles, because they're the same principles for everyone. They don't change. You need to understand their mindset and strategies. They're giving you their mindset, and you never understand that that becomes your mindset. And that's why they can beat you. That's why they can own you. These are control freaks. They're people who think they're God. They're people who think there are kings, are rulers, are masters, that their worldview and that their absolute decrees are not to be questioned or challenged. And we have to understand their mindset if we're going to defeat them. Many, many, many people still, as yet, do not comprehend or understand that what lies behind the ostensible rulers, the ostensible politicians, the ostensible structures of power are dark, occult, social engineering mind controllers. And it doesn't matter if you know their names personally, folks. Understand their belief and their mindset, because they are the ultimate enemy behind the scenes. And the secondary enemy is the people that they have brainwashed into their worldwide cult. The official, quote-unquote, official narrative of the master class is not to be questioned by the members of the slave class. That's it. The slave class average population is to listen to and accept the official narrative put forward by the ruling class. And that is it. If you don't agree with our narrative, you become a pariah, you become persona non grata, you become someone who we will conduct violence upon you by saying you cannot do any of the rights, you may not perform any of the rights that you used to be able to perform unchallenged and unhindered. We are going to hinder you in the performance of those rights, because now the world is different and this is the new, quote, normal. We are in a state of duress worldwide. Not only the duress of the state telling you you must obey its dictates called laws, we are in a state of duress with now the average golem, the average zombie, telling people you must accept and propagate the narrative of the ruling class and you may not challenge it. And if you do, we're going to shut down your access to media content delivery platforms and you'll be deplatformed. And that's the taking away of our First Amendment protected natural law right to freedom of speech. And that's a very dangerous proposition, folks, to tell people you must agree with my cult belief system, and if you don't, we're going to deplatform your freedom of speech. The best way of dealing with this is don't be apologetic to people. Don't let them control the narrative, and don't let them spread false information for others to believe. Your opinion based on your feelings is not as good as my hard-won knowledge that is meticulously weeded through with the trivium process. So you're not going to tell me I don't know what I know and you have a better understanding based on your opinion given to you by known liars. You will not Tell me I must believe what you currently believe, or you will strip my rights as a result of me not capitulating to your worldview. And that's the attitude we need to take with these people. Not back off. Not back down. The more you back down, the more you're going to embolden and embrazen these people. Fear is not just the mind killer, it is the soul killer. And that's where most people are at, and I will never capitulate to fear. It is the force which shuts consciousness down and prevents it from evolving. No fear. Or if you even have any, move forward with right action in spite of it. And the universe will come to your assistance. Most people do not understand that principle and are not acting in that capacity. And that's why we're losing, because we don't have that level of courage, even in the truth community. If everyone had my level of courage, there would be no tyranny. We would be free now. The problem is we have not worked upon ourselves significantly enough to develop that level of required courage. And that's the problem. Stop lying, especially to yourself. We have to look in the mirror and be honest about where we are at on the spiritual path and in our understanding of the dynamics of natural law, and then we have to be honest with others. But before we can tell the truth to others, we must first become fully honest with ourselves. We must be realistic about where humanity is as a species. Is the mindset of anarchy, or the principles of moral behavior upon which anarchy is based, truly propagating widely and manifesting in our world? We have to be honest with ourselves about that. Have anarchists as a movement, a so-called movement, accomplished the goals of the abolition of government and the restoration of our sovereign natural rights to any individuals anywhere on earth? And if such factors are the genuine measurements of a successful outcome for such a movement that we claim to be part of, and they should be, it is not about just setting an intention. It is about achieving the goal. Otherwise, why bother to do anything? Okay? Those should be our measurements for a successful outcome. Then I have to be honest with myself, and I must be honest with you that our movement thus far must be assessed as a failure. Thus far. There is still time to turn it around, however, otherwise I wouldn't be saying a word. So where do the dark occultists, the sorcerers of our world, the mind manipulators, the social engineers, where must they control this process from? They have to control it from the base level, from the level of available information. And that is why they must hide the true knowledge of how freedom works, and or dissuade you from looking into it by calling it's evil. The occult is knowledge about how nature works and how the human psyche actually works. And you know what? Our masters know it perfectly, and we don't know it at all. So, are human beings free? Are we free to exercise our rights unrestrained, or are we living in a perpetual state of duress if we don't comply with the commands of the so-called ruling class? The natural law of freedom has a quantifiable effect. Aggregate freedom is directly proportional to aggregate morality. Consequences will be manifested into the human condition as a direct result of the moral quality of aggregate human behavior. We collectively reap the result of the behavior which we collectively sow. Eternally immutable principles of governing dynamics in nature. Understand it, and if you understand it, you will understand how we will build true freedom together. For though the left reign among us, there's the scientific equation. The sum of freedom is directly proportional to the sum of morality. And it can never be any other way. That is a natural law of the universe. And it's what most quote-unquote anarchists have zero understanding of as yet. Live in the present moment. To live truly in the present moment, we have to get away from this diverse of infighting and all these factions of anarchy. There's no such thing. There is only the understanding that anarchy is true freedom based upon natural law. Divisive infighting between the so-called anarchist factions must end. There is only one true divide that separates humanity into two distinct types of individuals. But there's unfortunately a huge chasm in between. The criterion for this divide is whether or not an individual believes in authority and therefore believes that there is somehow moral, quote-unquote, legitimacy, quote-unquote, to human slavery. And we know that there can never be. To live in the present moment means that we must develop the ability to release our attachment to our own ego. And this is the problem in the anarchist community. Being trapped in ego can make one unteachable or unable to learn new and hidden truths. We think we have it all figured out already, but we don't understand there's much more to learn. Some anarchists refuse to acknowledge that there is a higher power or law of governing dynamics which exists in creation and determines the outcome of manifested reality based upon free will-based behavior. A prerequisite to being allowed to be taught in the ancient mystery traditions was an acknowledgement of a higher power than man, a force which also put into place the unseen spiritual laws that govern the consequences of behavior. To begin the process of shedding ego attachment, one must develop the ability to say one of the hardest things in the world that there is for the individual to say: I was wrong.